Gonna do a video on all of the layers of Metalflake, patterns, Kandy. I thought this would be a good idea to show each layer that you would put down. So I started with this would be the first layer, and then I did the whole thing with that, and then taped off everything else. I did the whole thing with this, then this, then this. If you're just starting, this would be a good thing to show each step. I'll show you the products that I used. I'm not going to spray anything. This is all finished. I have lots of other videos that things are all showing how to spray and all the different steps too. But I thought if you're experienced, this isn't going to be too useful for you. But if you're thinking about doing a Metalflake project or some panels or anything with Kandy and Metalflake under it, or you're just starting, I remember when I first started doing it, it was kind of confusing keeping track of every step that you should be doing. I think this will work good. At the end of the video, I label these, I number all of them, I put a label on what product you're supposed to be using, what sandpaper, each step. It would probably be a good thing to take a screenshot of, and it would have everything you're supposed to do. Then you could just bring it up on your phone when you're doing the project and make sure you're doing each step in order. So I'm going to go ahead and explain each of these and show you the product. And then, like I said, at the end, I'll have a screen that labels every one of them. So basically, this would be starting from bare metal. This is just a piece of sheet metal that was bare metal. All of your body work, any kind of filler, anything like that would be underneath this. So this is your starting point for finished body work, bare metal, anything like that. First step right here is an epoxy primer. I used a lot of line stuff on this project, so this would be right here. I mixed this with 20% reducer to make it a sealer. It's a little thinner. You spray it. You can wait 30 to 60 minutes and go ahead and go on with your next coats without sanding or anything like that. This one is, I guess this would be an optional step. A lot of people don't use any kind of epoxy primer. If you have a good paint underneath, or something that's like a gas tank that's already been primered or something like that, you don't have to use this. I always put an epoxy sealer first, just to give me a nice even coat over everything, and it's sealed and nothing's going to break through, or especially for this is really good for corrosion. This keeps anything underneath it, keeps it all sealed. So painted it, sprayed it all with this epoxy sealer. Okay, and then I waited 30 to 60 minutes, and then the next coat would be your base coat. If you're using a silver flake, you're going to want to use a silver base coat. I used this limestone silver. If you were doing a different color flake, like let's say you're doing a red flake, you would want to do a red base coat. You want to match your base coat with your flake the best you can. I guess the only exception would be a lot of guys like to do black first. Do black and then put your flake over black. They say it gives it a little bit more depth, and you can see when you have full coverage. I've done that before. Works good too. I prefer silver. We got 2 base coats right here of silver. Okay, and then the next step would be your flake. On this one, I used an 8/1000 and a 4/1000 micro flake. I used a chrome for the 8/1000, and then the 4/1000 was a chrome holographic. I mixed this up in jars, and you can get a good idea there what that looks like. This is what I used, and when I mix this, I'm going to mix this in a clear base coat. On this, I use the Speedoline. It'll just be a clear base coat, or this is called a color blender with some urethane reducer. And when I do flake, I mix it 1-to-1. Normally when you would do a base coat, a clear base coat, it would be an intercoat is what they call it. It would be 2-to-1. I do it 1-to-1, so there's less of a film buildup in the flake. So you just have more flake left over rather than more product as far as the intercoat. This is another optional step that some people use, a 2K clear, a final clear, and they put their flake in a final clear and put it on there. The flake stands up a little bit more. I think you just get a lot of buildup like that, and it's a little harder to sand later, and it's also a little bit more expensive. So this is my preference, is using an intercoat with the flake. I think it's a lot easier, unless you do a really big flake. If I do like a 0.025 flake or huge bass boat flake, then I do want to put that in a 2K final clear, so it kind of suspends the flake a little bit more. But with this size, I just mix it with an intercoat. So that's this step right here. So when you have that step done, it's going to feel rough to the touch. That's all right. That's just that flake. Almost feels like sandpaper. And now you're going to do as many coats as you want to get this to cover. This was 3 coats of flake. So 3 coats of flake over a silver base coat. It's pretty much 100% coverage. This is going to be 2 coats to 4 or 5 coats, depending on your preference and depending on how much flake you have mixed. Like I said, I put a lot of flake in there, so it covers good and covers in as few coats as possible. Okay, so after that step, now we're going to use the final 2K clear. I used Limeline on this also, and you're going to spray, depending on how big your flake and how rough this is, between 2 to 4 coats. And what we're doing with this step right here is you're getting clear over this, sealing this, and then when you spray this, it's still going to have a rough texture because it's going to follow all these flakes and go down in all the indentions and stuff like that, but that's all right. You want that's going to feel rough. So what we're going to do now, after we've done this, let's say this one right here was 3 coats of clear. You're going to let this dry. You're going to give it a day or 2, depending on the temperature. And once this is dry enough to sand, you're going to sand this flat. So basically, you can use between 600 and 1,000 grit sandpaper, depending on how much clear you have and how rough it is. If it's really chunky feeling, really rough, I'll hit it with a little 600 and then go up to maybe 800. This was really fine flake right here, and it's fairly smooth. You know, it's got some texture to it. So I used 1,000 right here. So if you look at the middle of this, this is 1,000. You're going to sand it flat. It's going to be completely dull. You're going to lose the shine. You're not going to see the flake very good, but that's all right. It'll come back later. On the edges, I left it not sanded completely. You can see these little dimples. You'll see little bitty shiny spots, little dimples. You need to keep sanding that. That has to be sanded until it's completely dull and no dimples left at all. Then you have a nice flat surface to start your artwork on. This is my favorite part from basically here up. So now that this is sanded nice and flat, it's been a few days, couple days to let it cure, you're going to start your artwork. So this one, you can do these in either order. I like to do my artwork first. Tape designs, lace, stencils, anything like that. I like to do all that first, and then I put my candy over top of it. You can do the candy first and put the patterns over it. It's preference. I like the patterns to be buried underneath. Gives it I think it gives it more depth. So right here, I did this with an airbrush, and I used a piece of lace like this, and I'm just going to lay it over it and pull it tight. You can use, something to clip it on. You can use magnets. If you got a real hard surface to get on, you can spray a little bit of spray adhesive on the back of lace. Let it get dry, where it's just got a little tack to it, and just stick it to it real light, spray it, and it'll peel right off. Like I said, or you could use stencils here, tape designs, all the fun stuff. Okay, and then let that flash. It only takes a few minutes, 10 minutes. And you can do your candy over that. So on this, I used a tropic orange, and same thing with the intercoat. I mixed this 1-to-1 with urethane reducer and intercoat, clear base coat. So you can see it's pretty dark. That's the orange. That took 3 to 4 coats to get that orange. So this is kind of the same as the flake. It just depends on what you're looking for. You could do 1 coat, it'd be a really light orange. Each one you do is going to get darker. It's going to be like that with all your candies. A lot of candies take 2 coats up to maybe 5 before you get the color that you're wanting. So now we got our patterns, got our candy, back to the 2K overall clear and activated clear. I'm going to spray a couple coats of clear. Now it depends. This, you couldn't feel any of this underneath here, so 2 to 3 normal coats is plenty. If you get something where you're doing tape designs, when you pull that tape, you're going to get indentions where the tape are because you'll have a paint buildup. So if you do that, you're going to want to get plenty of clear on here, 3 to 4 wet coats. That way, when you're covering over that with the clear, it gives you enough clear to sand it flat and not get into your designs. Because what you're going to want to do, any tape lines, anything like that where you can feel them, after this is sprayed and cured, we're going to go back to what we did back here. We're going to use 1000 grit sandpaper and sand this completely flat. So this was really easy to sand flat because this didn't have, it was 1 layer with an airbrush, so it didn't have a lot of buildup. But if I had them tape lines and stuff, you'd have to do quite a bit of sanding to get this completely flat. All your tape lines out, you'll know you're done when you can feel this and it's completely smooth and it's going to be completely dull, just like back here. Okay, so then that's 1000. If you have enough clear on it at this point after sanding it, which I did here, then you can go on to the next steps. If you get down where you're going to cut through the clear before you remove your tape lines, or it's really thin, you've taken a lot of material off to get rid of your tape lines, then right here you would add another couple coats of clear, another 2 or 3 coats of clear, just to be safe. I didn't need to do that on this. So this was 1000 grit paper right here. So then I did 1000. Then the next piece was 2000. The next piece was 3000. If you go all the way up to 3000, the buff and polish is pretty easy. So it's 1000, 2000, 3000. And then right here, this is just buff and polish, and you're finished. I have, like I said, I have some other videos if you want to look at how I'm laying the stencils, lace, airbrushing, spraying every step. I have, spraying it, showing how to do it. And then also I have another video that seems to be doing pretty good with flake size. It shows all the way from micro flake up to the big heavy Basecoat flake. You can watch that video if you don't know what size, and it'll give you a good idea what size you're going to need for your project or what you would like. So hopefully this helps, and good luck on your project.